Welcome back, everybody, to the last day of Season 2 for the Hearthstone Grandmasters Americas broadcast. Today is October 13th, 2019. And on this day in history, Abar, in 1904, Sigmund Freud published The Interpretation of Dreams book, which ended up becoming a very famous one for psychology, primarily for people to interpret their dreams as the wishful thinking that they have subconsciously, aka interpreting the dreams and trying to turn it into reality based off your desires. And of course, for some of these players here in Grandmasters, none greater than a dream, perhaps, than to play on the big stage, as we have 4 players remaining and only 3 matches to go to determine who can make that dream into reality.
Whew. I wasn't ready for all of that, Dan. You hit me with the heavy stuff right there. I'll have to pay more attention how TJ normally reacts to these tangents to kick off the matches.
It's
but
pretty much just like that.
Fair enough. Yes, we see Purple versus Eddie. So Purple's Zoo Warlock is banned, and this is frankly fascinating. We had 3 players across all 3 regions of Grandmasters playoffs bring Zoo Warlock. Those players' names are Tom06229, we have Purple, and then we had Silvername over in the European region. All 3 of these players advanced to the semifinals in their respective regions. Tom went all the way and actually secured his spot at the Hearthstone World Championship with Zoo in his lineup. Here we see it getting it banned on Purple's side, which is a win. That is the way that Conquest works. If your deck gets banned, it has done its job.
Yeah, considering that every time Purple's had to play Zoo Warlock this weekend, he's lost. So, pretty interesting indeed. In the meantime, let's going to focus on our first matchup. We have the Highlander Hunter from Eddie, featuring Ragnaros and Call of the Wild. It's going to be coming out. Emperor Thaurissan making its way into the deck list. But the thing that sticks out to me is this proactive game plan. Not a lot of secrets to try to confuse their opponents and make that Secret Hunter curve really powerful. It's something that we saw a few players actually fall prey to. Colento in Europe, Just Saying in Americas. Secret Reno Hunter just not really doing nearly as well as the proactive mid-range Highlander Hunter, I suppose. We can go ahead and coin that.
Yeah, Eddie's lineup is hot and heavy, which is his motivation for the Zoo Warlock ban from Purple's side. His Hunter deck not only features, like you said, a lack of a secret package, which is usually used more as an anti-aggro game plan than it is in the matchups that go longer, but along with the Emperor Thaurissan, you noted, he has added Ragnaros the Fire Lord and Call of the Wild into this deck. Those are 8 drops and 9 drops respectively. So this deck is much more geared toward winning longer matchups, like going against Druid, than it is against beating aggro decks. I've actually noted a couple times as this matchup has come up over the course of our playoffs here across Europe and Americas, that this matchup was heavily favored statistically in the way of the Hunter, and that the fact that the Hunter has added Ragnaros and Call of the Wild into the deck, especially with how well Call of the Wild pairs with Zul'jin, I would think, and this still might be the case, that the matchup has become even more Hunter favored. What we have seen play out is that, in fact, the new card added to the Druid deck since the Doom and the Tomb expansion has significantly helped the Druid fight back against the Hunter, and that new card is Khun the Forgotten King. It is a choose one effect that allows you to either gain 10 armor or to refresh all of your mana crystals. Of course, working along with the Druid quest, you get both of those effects, so it becomes a 0 mana 7/7 that gains 10 armor, swings tempo back significantly in your favor in these late game board-oriented matchups.
Yeah, and I'm a really big fan of the way the Tomb of the Doom was actually crafted, which is to try and help things like the Druid quest to give some cards that didn't get much time in the sun, right? Khun was seen as a Aviana combo card back in the day to maybe even cheese some victories out. But now Khun has so many more use cases with the Quest Druid that it makes it really interesting to watch how it develops. So, you know, I'm a big fan of Khun in the Druid decks. I think they're really good. Speaking of the devil.
And speaking of development, frankly, we have a turn 5 Innervate Nourish with both halves of our Choose One unlocked, followed up by a Wrath on the same turn, conveniently spending our 2 remaining mana that we have accrued from our Nourish. So an excellent catch-up turn there from Purple. But the beats are not done on Eddie's side. Savannah High Main on 6, a feared play for years now in Hearthstone history.
Yeah, Savannah High Main has been a very hard card for Drew to deal with, even back when they had more removal tools like Naturalize. Always been a tricky card for this class to handle, and this is no exception. I wonder. Right now, purple can remove some power on the board through a swipe or a starfall. Looks like he's going for another nourish. Finds a Nubis Top Defender, which might be exactly what he's looking for. Crystal Merchant also being an option in at this point too. The swipe is more mana efficient and kind of preemptively gets ahead of perhaps trading onto the board. For example, Starfall now will hit that 3-2 on the following turn, so even if Eddie protects his Houndmaster Shaw, should be able to swing back. And with so much more mana than his opponent, you gotta imagine that Eddie right now is looking for a way to press in for the win.
Yeah, purple was relying on the fact that Eddie's hand would be minion light here, because even though he had the Anubisoft Defender to help defend him on this particular turn and buy him time for these Starfalls to take effect, he knows his opponent had the Houndmaster Shaw, so anything that Eddie played would be granted rush immediately, and it paid off, frankly. Eddie's hand was minion light, played right into purple's hand, and now we see an unbelievable swing turn unlocked by the Coon I mentioned just a few turns ago.
Yep. Big tempo and life gain. Pretty much all you can ask for in this position. Eddie finds Sandbinder. Sandbinder works really well to find the Zephyrus or the Ragnaros.
Or the Tiamat.
Or the Tiamat. Interesting to note as well is that whatever spell that you cast off the off the Zephyrus can also be double dipped into Zul'jin. I have seen some hunters pick Twisting Nether, and then of course summon everything with Zul'jin and then Twisting Nether it. So have to be mindful of it. So while Eddie felt very close to finishing the game, purple stabilizing just in time.
Question is then, can you maybe use this Zephyrus to find a proactive resource that will help you deal with the board?
I wonder.
Chances are yes, although 7 mana tends to be a little bit awkward for proactive development. Might be better served, and he saves all of these cards for a potential Van Clear. Oh, interesting. Loading the board so that you can use Zephyrus as a potential way to kill. Forcing purple to have another form of AoE, which he very much does. Whew. Well, looks like purple is going to be able to lock this board up real soon and potentially lock this game up.
Yeah, Hidden Oasis simultaneously will help lock this board up while also being able to pad purple's life total to the point where we won't see any cheesy lethals out of Eddie here. He's going to have to continue to fight over this board state, and as much as he does not want to have to Zephyrus for Twisting Nether here when the Zul'jin looks like an excellent game plan, it might be exactly what he needs. He could set up a Zephyrus Twisting Nether followed by a Zul'jin Twisting Nether, hope that purple then runs low on resources and he finds his Ragnaros' Call of the Wild off the top of his deck.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering if there's an opportunity for Eddie to do something unconventional with Zephyrus here. Normally, if you play Zephyrus in the spot, it'll just offer you anything up to 7 mana as an opportunity to try to clear the board, like Flame Strike. If you Dynotamer Brands, he only has 0 mana remaining if he plays Zephyrus. Is there any world where you like try to play Zephyrus to get like Ancestral Healing to heal back your King Crush from an 8, for whatever, back to 8 health? Maybe, maybe not. Might be better just to Zephyrus Flame Strike here.
Flame Strike does look appealing. I'm kind of wondering at what point Zephyrus offers you Deathwing when your hand is low on cards and you're behind on the board. Not sure it would be enough to get Eddie out of this situation, but from his perspective, assuming Purple doesn't have any AoE, if, for example, Purple developed King Feoris on the following turn, Eddie might have been thinking Deathwing to follow that up, and he might be able to steal the board back and close the game out.
Well, Purple's in a pretty good spot no matter how he chooses to spend his mana here. Where the Expedition finds Drew the Claw. How much damage is that actually? Let's see. 8 plus 4 plus 4. 16. His opponent's at 17 life.
It would be one off, however, with Zephyrus in hand. Purple shouldn't be too far off of having that active.
Yeah, another reasonable thing to go for could be just Oasis Surger and Tempo. You have Oasis Surger and you have, not the Crystal Mirror, you have the Fabinus Flute, so you can just summon maximum board presence. You would be playing directly into Zephyrus. I think that's the big thing in Purple's mind, given that he saw the Sandbinder.
I believe Ferocious Howl is the only 2-of left in Purple's deck he has not drawn.
So Eddie has an 8-mana Zephyrus available to him and a 4-mana Zephyrus available to him. In this position, I think it will very clearly offer you Tyrion or a Twisting Nether.
I wonder.
Which then might lead you into the 2-turn Zephyrus Twisting Nether followed by Zul'jin Twisting Nether setup, which will buy Eddie some time. The question is, can he actually win the game from that point?
Right.
There is the Twisting Nether alongside the Tyrion options you mentioned. Zephyrus thinking Siphon Soul might sound attractive as well. It's going to be the Nether.
There's a chance that, you know, Twisting Nether ends up pulling a game played first before other cards like Animal Companion. Oh my. So the King Feoris summoned a Generous Mummy. I wonder if that's going to play a factor whatsoever. Unleash the Hounds. That's not going to activate. And the Animal Companion comes before the Twisting Nether. So, a little bit unfortunate sequencing there for Eddie. Another Feoris.
And that'll win it.
Yeah, Eddie concedes. Purple's Druid has too much momentum, and that's going to be game 1 over to our Tempo Storm player. Purple, as many people have been commenting, has been playing fairly well and consistent, and I feel like that's been inconsistent across some of the other Grandmasters. However, that's not the case really against Eddie. Eddie has had a couple of missteps here and there, but for the most part has been pretty on point all season long. In fact, both those seasons, Eddie's been one of the most consistent America's Grandmasters player. So rightfully coming in as a #1 seed and be able to get that important victory yesterday leading into Championship Sunday.
Definitely one of the breakout performers of Hearthstone Grandmasters, in my opinion, over the course of both seasons is Eddie. When you looked at the initial Grandmasters lineups, he might not have been the biggest name on the list, particularly since he changed his name at the beginning of Grandmasters. He used to be known as Seo Hyun, if you are familiar with that player. But yeah, he's definitely made a name for himself since as one of the most consistent performers. And Purple not only has also been consistent, but has been consistently firing shots at other America's players, I have noticed, on various social media platforms. So if you're going to do that, you might as well back it up, and he has.
Yep. And he's been backing it up, and we'll see if he can use that game 1 victory in his favor in terms of momentum. Coming up next is a potential opportunity for Purple to see if he can squeeze in his Priest. But I think one thing that's in the back of his mind is how does his Priest fare against some of these other decks that have gotten better, right? Like the Hunter and the Shaman decks, which are pegging priests as their #1 enemies. So I wonder if that makes Purple switch to his Shaman, which is a deck that he's been playing a lot. In fact, Purple's Shaman play has been a frequent thing happening this season. And it's going to happen one more time as we have the Quest Shop come up here for our Canadian player.
Right on cue, Purple does reach for the Quest Shaman. We see a single copy of Mind Control Tech and a single copy of Weaponized Wasp alongside a Witchwood Piper in Purple's deck, which is of note because most players cut cards like the former champ, which Purple also is missing, but the Witchwood Piper was one of the cards that frequently was removed to make room in this deck for the Desert Hare and Evolve package. Purple valuing that Witchwood Piper, the additional resources, so much that he was willing to take out some of the tools that fought for board more effectively.
All right, well, we're going to go into
For Doomhammer.
game #2 here. Purple on the play, Eddie on the coin, with a couple of decent options. Nourish being a card that I feel like is very valuable to the Druid. But at the same time, I've seen a lot of Shamans punish Druids for having that Nourish in their opening hand. And Purple's been one of them. He's been playing super aggressively against the Druids.
I think that punish would have more to do with the power level of the Shaman's hand than it has to say about keeping the Nourish on the Druid side. I definitely think that to the best of your ability, you want to ignore what the Shaman is doing proactively in the early phases of the game. Hold on to that Nourish in your opening hand and try and execute your own game plan, because later on you get the biggest tempo swings as the Druid in the mid portion of the game when you have 10 mana crystals unlocked before your opponent does.
Yep, but I also understand the idea of him mulliganing aggressively right threw away both of his cards to try to get something better, just to develop. Questing Explorer is probably the best pickup possible for Purple in this spot, followed by any other way for him to start finishing his quest.
Behold, jewels
I
of
like
the
this from Eddie. You
sound.
see, this is a play that is often done incorrectly on ladder, where players will start with the untapped potential and then coin it out and then play the crystallizer on 2, which frankly just doesn't make sense because you're missing one attack out of your 2-drop if you plan on playing the quest alone on the second turn anyway. So the Crystal Merchant in this scenario gets to swing, either trade into a Cable Rat if that were Purple's turn 2 play, or a Novice Engineer, value trade over those minions, or simply punch for 1 face damage if Purple doesn't give you that option.
Purple debating if he wants to get the 2 damage in. Makes that trade just in case he doesn't have a way to deal with that Crystal Merchant. Gets in Goblin Lackey instead. Does not get it. Eddie most likely tempted to try and kill off this Evil Totem this turn, so they can get an extra card and continue to pursue his quest.
Eddie could also choose to cycle the Wrath on the Sandstorm Elemental. He still draws his extra card off the Crystal Merchant that way, but it also means that Purple, if he doesn't immediately respond to the Crystal Merchant on his following turn, because there is 0 power left on Purple's board, that Eddie might get to draw another card off the Crystal Merchant on his turn 4 if he so chooses. So decides to forego that option, and also additionally could have hero powered the Sandstorm Elemental instead to make that possible rather than cycling the Wrath at all. Decides he wants to take care of the Evil Totem instead.
Desert Hare into the Witchy Lackey. Eddie ready for the Evolve, but the Evolve's not coming.
Come dance to my song.
Purple has the option to mutate this turn as well, evolve 2 out of the 3 hares if he so chose, but the break point between 3 and 4 and the stats increase you get from that is less formidable than evolving your 3/4 Mogu Flesh Shaper into an 8-drop. 8-drop pool is excellent in Hearthstone right now. There are a lot of incredibly high value minions, and that was true even before Ragnaros the Fire Lord was added to the 8-mana slot, which we saw come into play in the finals of our European playoffs. If you happen to catch that, Casey finally found the Ragnaros off of his evolved Flesh Shaper. Sottle and I have been waiting for it all weekend.
Hey, me too. Yeah, purple has the ability to go for the throat here and hopefully get the Mogu Flesh Shaper evolved to a really important minion. Just the usual Princess Talanji. But purple gets to evolve it again with the Bog Slosher if it doesn't get answered. However, with that War Druid Lodi... Oh wait, his quest isn't done. That's right, he did opt to go for the Coin Crystal Merchant instead of the quest coin
takes
Yes, he was left with two options in this situation. He could either forego the quest proc and clear the Talanji with the Starfall, which would allow him additionally to develop his Anubisath Defender this turn, but would stall his quest for one turn. Or he could lose value on the War Druid Lodi, decides that he is willing to take 10 damage to the face through purple's attacks on this following turn. He would rather preserve the value, which I think is wise. I think it factors in how this matchup plays out in the grand scheme of things, as opposed to just worrying about the turn in front of him.
Well, now purple has the opportunity to use his Bog Slosher and try to use the Witchy Lackey Transformer, something to higher mana cost. By transforming, he can also spread the damage. That is happening for sure. We're always attacking with everything we have. Bouncing the hair. That's interesting. Using it as an opportunity to threaten a potential evolve. He's anticipating a big board sweep, so this is his refill.
Yeah, I was also immediately looking at the return of the Witchy Lackey into evolving our hair on the board, but purple is playing the long game here.
This turn, absolutely ridiculous. Druid just trying to time their swing turns, and Anubisath Defender, brutal. Purple looks like he is going to be locked out of this game momentarily. Slash Surfer, though.
Eddie, notably, as you see this Chef Nomi enter his hand, he is playing a version of Quest Druid that includes Chef Nomi and does not include King Theoris. So this Druid plays much less for the mid-game and more for the late game. So when you see Eddie valuing card draw effects, you can understand the motivation why. Speaking of card draw effects, Geppetto Joybuzz also an inclusion in this Quest Druid list.
Then you're going to be able to draw 3 cards to Nourish and even Starfall right after because he's going to gain 2 mana.
Purple, a bit of a smirk there, as Eddie is now 2 Nourishes into his deck. Nourish a pivotal card. Side.
Purple by... Evolve being drawn 1 turn late. Purple by investing into the Sludge Slipper this turn also stops his Shudderwalk from being able to go off because he's overloaded. So he's going to need the Sludge Slipper to pull a lot of value.
Well, you say 1 turn late on this Evolve, Dan, but if Purple can make it this far, he has the option to Shudderwalk. Ooh, Wolf Rider, haven't seen that one in a while. Purple has the option to Shudderwalk Evolve on turn 10. His Shudderwalk is loaded up with multiple copies of Desert Hair, so he will do that combo that we are used to seeing Shaman players make on turn 4, only a more advanced version of it later into the game. The question is he going to make it that far with how empty his hand is and how much explosive potential Eddie has on this turn?
Yes, Eddie has the goods. However, I think he is aware of the threat that he could be overextending and walking into a mind control tech, the single copy in Purple's deck. And if he plays Kuhn into Cenarius, for example, he could end up helping Purple stay alive into that evolved turn from Shudderwalk, which could swing the game exactly back into the Shaman's favor. So right now, Eddie's trying to think about all the ways that he can seize control of this game. Yeah, I'm a fan of Kuhn.
interesting inflection point in this game, because when you see a card stuck on the far left of your Shaman opponent's hand as long as it has in purples, the range of cards it could be is narrowed down to almost exactly Mind Control Tech and Shudderwalk in this position from Eddie.
Eddie just gained 28 armor. That's pretty ridiculous to me. That he gained almost the entire starting health total.
Double pump Azarano.
All right, looks like purple prioritizing getting that extra pair of goblin, or witchy lackeys rather, and then goblin lackey to help trade in. He's ready. Eddie, in the meantime, he's got 12 damage. 12 plus an extra 5, 17.
Elise is active, as you can see the golden glow on the far left of Eddie's hand, which means if he finds Zephyrus in the near future, that will be active as well. So even if he's pushing a non-lethal amount of damage on this turn, the damage push is highly relevant to allow Zephyrus to pick up a Gore Howl off the top later on. So you see Eddie valuing pushing damage immediately, picking cards like Mark of the Taunt, Mark of Nature, excuse me, off of his Discover option to maximize his attack power on the board this turn, and all of a sudden, purple reached turn 10 for his Shudderwalk Evolve combo. The question is it good enough? Shudderwalk's gonna have to do quite a bit here.
Precisely. Barista gets all those Desert Hairs back. Bog Sloshers more things back. Okay, Mogu Flesh Shaper is still not free. Evolve. Finds an Earth Elemental, but still means he's dead on board.
Well played. You win.
The Druid pressure, back-to-back games. A little bit too much. And Eddie equalizes the series and now turns it into how the Priest deck from Purple, once again, is going to perform, given that that Druid deck was one of the lists that Purple was targeting with the Priest, hopefully. And with Eddie's Priest being banned, he has Hunter and Shaman remaining, and we have Shaman and Priest remaining here, Abar.
Yeah, the power level of that Kun the Forgotten King has me changing my tone a bit on some matchups that I keep saying should be more favorable or more unfavorable for the Druid than they appear to be. The Druid has performed quite well over the last couple of days, even though some of its worst enemies in the competitive format have also gotten bolstered. Just the addition of Kun the Forgotten King has really seemed to increase the performance of the Druid overall the past few days.
Yeah, it's very flexible because it can be used as a defensive tool. It can also just be used as a way to constantly cheat mana. And you know, there's been games where you play Kun just so that you can barely survive long enough, and then even end the game through damage from the hand, right? Because you put your opponent down to like 2, and you just use Kun to like make sure you barely stay alive, and then trade. I think the card is extremely versatile, and I've been thinking that Druid is maybe better than what we think it is right now. Not everyone even has a Druid deck list these days. They sometimes opt for like Paladin or Warrior. Sometimes in other people's cases, they choose to play even that Warlock deck. We're going into game number 3 momentarily, and game number 3 has been very pivotal in some of the series today, as several of them have ended 3-1. And whoever took control from game 3 ended up becoming the winner of that series. We haven't had something go to 3-2 in Europe, but we can maybe have a nice game 5 in Americas today.
But here on game 3, we will be observing the Quest Shaman Mirror. This is a matchup that has changed significantly since Doom in the Tomb was introduced to the standard metagame, specifically because of that card we see in Eddie's hand right now, Evolve, which I expect him to keep. The Desert Hare Evolve package, if it can be found early, is crucial for swinging the board in your favor in the early phase of the game. It develops an incredible amount of power onto the board. It conveniently develops that incredible amount of power in the form of 3 bodies specifically, which often gives you the liberty to play around mind control tech in the early game. And so both players will be aggressively looking for those 2 cards in tandem, ideally. The nice thing about the Evolve is that even if you do not find the hair, it's useful in a lot of other situations too.
It's true. It can be useful to even just improve the board tension to the point where things like Mogu Flesh Shaper and whatnot become really threatening. Eddie on the coin being able to put out this evil totem, getting ahead of whatever purple plays. Purple, not happy to see it. Evil totem is hard to deal with and it helps finish the quest a little bit earlier.
I hope you like my invention.
Purple with the Knobs Engineer debating if he should mutate. Finds Dalaran Mage.
So the reason that Purple wanted to mutate there is to give himself at least 2 power on the board. It was really important to him that he contested this evil totem immediately, as the lackeys generated from that card had the ability to snowball this matchup. Wow.
Oh boy. Okay.
Of course it's the right way.
Questing Explorer ended up being a pretty good draw for Purple.
Questing Explorer also looking like an attractive option for Eddie here.
Of course it's the right way.
From nothing, power.
Do like the Ethereal Lackey over the Sludge Slurper. And Dan, where do we draw the line?
I think it's around here, actually. I don't know if we need a 3rd Evolve, but other cards like Stormbringer are very interesting, given that that's exactly what's in Eddie's deck anyways. He has a Stormbringer in his Shaman deck list, and I largely think it's to help challenge the Druids and the Shamans. So I wonder if, in his mind, he wants to get the Stormbringer in case the one that he's looking for is in the bottom part of his deck. Another option, too, is just to use Totemic Surge just for tempo, so that way the Evil Totem gets traded and deals a little bit of damage. In a very abstract way, Totemic Surge could be very similar to how other cards like Backstab function. He ends up going for the 3rd Evolve.
I like it personally. I think that in my time playing this matchup, that Evolve is quite possibly the single most powerful tool that the Shaman has now in the Shaman Mirror matchups. There are, to some extent, diminishing returns on having 3 copies of the exact same card in your hand. But the returns on Evolve diminish less than they might for something like, say, a Lightning Bolt, if that were 3 copies of that in Eddie's hand, and that if you evolve, you are generating a board that makes further Evolve stronger.
Well, he picks up one of the Desert Hares. Flame Tongue to... look at the positioning, A-Bar.
Ball.
Obviously not going to be
Engaging
the real
TC
case here.
Mental dislocator.
Oh, interesting.
Of course
So
it's the right
ends
way.
up stealing the Ticket Scalper. Ticket Scalper ends up drawing Purple some cards if it overkills. I don't think that's going to be the case here. God, since Eddie can pick the trades. This Eager Underling is sort of the new version of a Fungal Mancer, people compared it to, because when it dies, it gives 2 random friendly minions +2/+2.
Thunderhead is absolutely absurd. We're seeing entirely different versions of Shaman emerging since the release of the latest patch.
Right.
Around the synergy with Thunderhead and some of the overload mechanics, generating wide boards to make the most out of these evolves that are new to Shaman. The fact that Eddie just created one off of an evolve is offering him so much tempo for free in this position.
Right. It's even to the point where Eddie could have even considered using his Bog Slosher on his Sludge Surfer to summon more elementals and clear the board. But instead opting to finish the quest here. It looks like he's going to go for another evolve.
Nothing, power.
Lightning Storm, often quite nice in this matchup. Evolve number 2. Ooh.
Yeah, you know, feels like his other board was stronger.
That's mostly the Starving
Of course it's the
Buzzard's
right
fault,
way.
I would say here.
Mogu Flesh Shaper. Okay. Well. Let's see what the Sludge Serpent gives us. No damage lackeys. It's kind of the one thing Purple is looking for right now. But he can build up the board through Titanic lackeys.
My question is, can he build it up enough to protect this Mogu Flesh Shaper? Because if that happens to stick around on the board, it buys Purple an additional turn to locate either a Mutate or one of his own copies of Evolve.
Yeah, he's probably tempted to use it on something that he can keep alive. So if he uses the Titanic Lackey on the Bog Slosher, he keeps it alive. But it's like Purple recognizing that it's unlikely that he's going to be able to keep everything anyways.
He also appears to be factoring in Sandstorm Elemental. That would be definitely an incentive to actually apply the taunt buff onto the Mogu Flesh Shaper. As you can see, his board is now a pile of 1s or 3 or higher minions. This is very intentional on Purple's part.
I wonder.
This could be one of those scenarios where Eddie might have to take a break off of his using his hero power. Although it is a little bit tricky to say. Funny enough, Eddie has a way to draw cards with the Starving Buzzard because the Life Drinker's a beast. I believe the Wasp is a beast.
The one time Starving
hilarious.
Buzzard appears on the board and stays there, enables its user to draw additional cards, and Eddie's hand is already full and he doesn't want any more cards.
Exactly. Eddie giving up a lot of tempo, to be honest. By like utilizing his hero power for value, he's got a full hand, so he intends on taking this late into the game, and I think Shutterwalk being in the hand influences that to a certain extent. Also mindful of mind control tech.
I agree with you, though. It feels like Eddie gave up too much to me on this particular turn. I was looking at the Lightning Storm. It felt like my follow-up turn 7 was a turn where I was comfortable being overloaded. Ooh.
This Lightning Storm, though, I mean, it's not even necessarily the threat of Lightning Storm, it's also the threat of Sandstorm Elemental.
Yes.
So, this is pretty good opportunity here. Okay, one of the 3 health minions dies. Eddie can now fill the board back up.
It's hot.
The calm before the storm.
The Lackey Wars continue.
The future is the shadows. Your demise be near.
Purple's going to need the help of a few lackeys here to scrap back onto the board state, so he starts with hitting the button, developing the Cable Rat, and re-evaluating. I appreciate the speed with which he made that, as I find with the Quest Shaman, players often spend too much time not taking their first couple of actions. This deck has an unbelievable number of decisions on any given turn. Purple visibly frustrated.
He's hoping for no Sandstorm Elemental, I guess, because it would have just blown him out of the game. Eddie has drawn only one of his Sludge Slurpers. So if he plays the Witchwood Piper, there's no guarantee that he gets it. That being said, is Eddie even considering what the Witchwood Piper could get, or is he just trying to figure out ways to defuse the board situation?
What to do?
Guessing you might be looking at starting with this evil cable rat, seeing what kind of tempo options the lackeys have to offer him. Although if he's doing that, I was going to say it's unlikely you start by trading, so he is instead going to ignore a significant portion of his opponent's board and make the biggest board he can on his own, build some board tension this turn.
Purple also has big barista value incoming if he doesn't trade into it. An Evolve comes into the hand here for Purple.
Hello.
Has the opportunity to hero power barista and Evolve, and Witchy Lackey afterwards as well. He actually doesn't even need to necessarily hero power the barista because he has so many battle cries that he's going to have a way over full hand.
Might be tempting to evolve this turn, but if Purple can get away with it, he can barista here, put these 3 hairs back in his hand, and then his turn 10 could involve developing multiple hairs along with the evolve.
Right. So just spend the turn trading instead of actually going for it.
That's what I was thinking, but in true Purple fashion, he scoffs at your trade,
There's little time.
punches the damage right to the face.
I see your future.
Oh, and Ahmet almost came by.
That is a battle cry, this 4/5
Omega Agent.
Mega Agent.
Glinda.
Hello.
Wow, there's some interesting stuff happening in this game. So Glinda says your minions have Echo, and I just want to point out that Purple's got a lot of cheap stuff. And he's got also Mogu Flesh Aper Evolve. This game is just gonna start getting real crazy soon. Shaman Mirrors, if you can't combo them down, end up becoming quite the fiesta, to say the least.
Dan, I have immensely enjoyed my time casting with Sato, but when it comes time for the Fiesta, I am happy to be here alongside you, my friend.
Happy to have you as well, buddy. Because I hope you brought enough popcorn. This one's going to be entertaining, to say the least. There's this raunchy animation gif of Jaina eating popcorn very furiously. That is me right now. Eddie treating this very seriously. Even killing the Arcane Dynamo to prevent anything. And the Evolve, the reveal, Bluegill Warrior and Flame Tongue Totem. Kovalak is a full clear.
Good on Eddie to have learned his lesson with the Flame Tongue positioning here off the wall.
He even gets Sniff Snap. Omega Agent! That's just gonna summon so much stuff.
We are
It's just
one.
crazy amount of stats on board.
We are one.
That's like a Chef Nomi level play. Oh, wow. Goblin Lackey to help trade as well, which I think was important given how much damage is on the board. He was staring at 21 damage. Killing the Flame Tongue is killing 4 power. You could also trade it to a 6/6, which is also good. But the thing is, the Flame Tongue represents threat to his board state because it'd be hard to deal with the 4/5s. But Flame Tongue makes it a lot easier.
Mega Agent's had enough of this desert hair nonsense. He's trying to show us how it's done. Stats on the board.
Purple could also just use Cobalt Lackey to snipe the 0/3, make it easier. Save Goblin Lackey for when he needs immediate tempo onto the board.
Double time and double play.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness. Okay. So, we definitely want to overtrade some of these things, like 6/6 and 4/5.
Nothing but power.
Eddie doing his due diligence to see if he picks up a lethal opportunity. Like, if he gets Rockbiter and Bloodlust, I think that might be it. There's just a lot of damage on board right now.
Even just a Bloodlust gets the job done here, so Eddie has one more chance. No dice.
Feral Spirits might be an interesting pick. Gets the Farsight. In this position, pretty tempted from Eddie to maybe Stormbringer, but also I'm starting to realize how much damage is on the other side. You might have to just trade off most of this stuff here.
He's going to have to make some number of trades. He can value trade his 6/6, and then the Snip Snap doesn't mind trading whatsoever because it actually expands his board to help support the Stormbringer.
Yep. I think we want to give up. Okay, one more minion. Finds a Jeklik. Oh, jeez. Okay. First of all, before we figure that out, do we have lethal? Cobalt Lackey, so you push 10. Life Drinker is another 6. Another Life Drinker 6? That's not enough mana. Well, Cobalt Lackey on that thing for sure. Stop the lifesteal.
Do we not have lethal? So each Life Drinker is worth 6. He could have Hero Powered Life Drinker. That's 12 damage, and he's at 21, which means Purple only needed 9 power on the board to have lethal this turn, and he has 10.
But there was the Taunt Lifesteal Jeklik in the way. So he couldn't actually have done everything, unfortunately. Gets another Cobalt Lackey.
Wait, what? What's my point of confusion? He has 10 power on board right now that can all go face.
And
which would put Eddie to 11.
Right, and then the 2 Life Drinkers are 12, but there's a High Priest Jeklik, and it has Taunt and Lifesteal. So in order to go past Taunt, you have to trade a 4/5 in. And your opponent, you lose 4 damage, and they also gain 4 life. Desert Hair Evolve. Purple's right back in it. Oh, what's in the box this time? Kobolds, rats, and hares turn into stuff.
So, let me break this board down for you. We have an Arcane Watcher as the 5/6 in the middle here. It can't attack unless you have spell damage. But if you notice, on both sides, we have a Kobold Geomancer, and we have an Ogre Magi. So that is thoroughly covered.
Yep.
I wonder.
This could be Eddie saying, you know what, Shudderwalk's just a lot. But I would like to play the Life Drinker before the Shudderwalk. I think that's just because I prefer to have a board state that can not only get answered, but also heal and maybe deal damage. But Purple's also at 29. This is starting to get to the territory where this matchup is very hard and untested in this kind of situation. So it's all improv. Players just trying to spontaneously solve puzzles. A Mogu Flesh Shaper.
Wow.
Comes to the hand because Shaku steals a class card from your opponent. And his opponent's a Shaman. So he gets a Shaman card. What is happening this game?
Come dance to my song.
Buttons are so squishy.
Count damage, 6, 10, 15. Plus 7 is 22. Plus the Life Drinker, that should be enough. Purple can close out this game, I believe. Let me count again. 10 on the left, 12 on the right, that's 22. Plus 1 Life Drinker is 28.
Purple furiously counting himself.
Just to make sure he needed board space.
I think he
Style
found
points.
lethal here.
Yeah. Definitely didn't need that much, but looks like Eddie just fell too far behind, and that's going to do it. What a swingy matchup back and forth. Purple getting the last laugh for this game, at least, as he is up 2-1. Normally in the season, this would determine who wins the match, but Eddie still has 1 life remaining. This is a best of 5 for a spot in the grand finals.
You know, I love the Desert Hares, but if there's one bounce I want to watch more than any, it's Purple's jovial laughter that tends to rock him up and down.
Laughs with his shoulders.
He does.
Seems like.
Yeah.
It's more of a pogo hopper effect.
Yes,
if you will.
yes.
Instead of a desert hare. Coming up next is Purple's potential best deck, right? He has the Priest, which makes me think that Eddie's going to probably switch to his Hunter to try to shut down this Priest down, and then we'll turn to a Quest Shaman versus a Combo Priest matchup, which might not be good for Eddie. If you're a fan in his camp, you're not really optimistic about the Shaman versus the Priest. However, we have seen some Shaman steal games from Priest because of that Desert Hare Evolve. So it could be a little bit early to just declare purple the victor. We've seen crazier comebacks in Hearthstone and in Conquest, especially best of fives. Against a deck like Combo Priest.
The Priest for purple, fairly standard stuff here. The only point of contention perhaps in this particular list is that purple is only running the single copy of Silence. Some players prefer to play 2, as it does give you a marginal advantage in the Priest Mirror, which is a very common matchup. Eddie's deck list on the other side, this Hunter is a little more spicy. We have seen it already so far this match. It does not rock the secret package, instead prefers some more late game oriented options that are new to the standard format, like the Emperor Thorson, the Ragnaros, the Call of the Wild, and Zul'jin for the second Call of the Wild.
If he can get to that point, we have actually only seen that one time this weekend in Americas and Europe, where Highland Hunter was able to capitalize off of it. We've seen a lot of other games where it struggled to get anything done, and just kind of had awkward draws with, you know, the usual one-of copies of everything and not having anything lined up. And then we've had like the perfect stars align draw with, you know, people like Bloodyface that just had the nuts, and it was just hard to stop. So Highland Hunter has been all over the board. And Eddie, with his last life, is going to need to get this win here.
Eddie's Ursatron package includes only that Snip Snap that he just drew, as well as the Ziliax left in his deck. So Ziliax is the patches, if you will. Card he does not want to draw, as it will significantly reduce the value of the other cards in his hand.
Hey, I got you, friend.
Meanwhile, purple, not worried about any cards that cost 5 mana. He is immediately securing board state with a pile of beaming sidekicks. Sidekick, sidekicking a sidekick. See who's in charge here.
Precisely. Next Ritualist, more tempo being generated for purple side where he can heal and push. Although he did have that option before. So I guess he could heal twice, heal for the trade, and then never set Ritualist afterwards. Or he can hold on to the Ritualist and see what he picks up on the following turn.
Life is an afterthought.
Snip Snap is mana inefficient here, but alright. Never mind, we'll start with the Sandbinder. That's a nice pickup off the top of the deck, makes Eddie's turn much more clear.
Yeah, it makes it much better too, so that way he can get Zephyrus, but Zephyrus wasn't picked up. Now, purple has double Divine Spirit, Inner Fire, or not Inner Fire, Topsy-Turvy. Effectively Inner Fire.
Does, however, also have a Wild Pyromancer on his board, so until that one's gone, it's going to limit the buffing he can do to the health total of his minions.
Yep.
Unity, precision, perfection.
I'm going to guess Pyromancer isn't sticking around long here, though. Eddie has the option to trade into it with this Ziliax Divine Shield, pad his life total by 3. Alternatively, he could punch it into this Beaming Sidekick, which would then force purple to heal it if he wanted to cast a spell, unless purple trades off his Pyromancer first. But yeah, this makes sense to me.
All right, well.
I don't know about you, Dan, but I'm going in.
16-16.
So if purple does go for the 16-16 here, trades his Neverset Ritualist into Eddie Ziliax, punches Eddie down to 13 health after his 2 minions attack. Eddie has the Unleash the Hounds to then make 2 Hounds to clear off the other sidekick, which means conveniently he would have 3 mana left. And that would leave purple with only 1 minion after Eddie makes his trade. So Deadly Shots would end this game in Eddie's favor.
If purple Topsy-Turvy is the 1-2, you can keep the 2-3 on the board and then go all in.
That is true.
So, holding on to the Topsy-Turvy. And purple now putting his faith in an all-in on turn 5. Eddie has no Deadly Shot. He's got a Spring Paw. Spring Paw is enough to have Houndmaster taunt it up.
Yeah, Eddie is not entirely dead here. He can taunt up either of his 2 Spring Paws, value trade over the 1-2 sidekick, and then pray that 16-16 has to trade into what would be a 3-2 Spring Paw at that point.
Right.
2 health being relevant because even if purple were to, say, for example, top deck the second Pyromancer and had 1 spell to cast, it would not be enough to clear the 3-2 Spring Paw at that point, which would leave it to just silence as purple's way to punch through on this upcoming turn. But he does have a lethal out here, and he does not find it.
It's a good draw for next turn, but this turn he's got nothing. So, pretty straightforward. Trade and heal. Back over to Eddie. There's 5 power on the board, plus Dire Tamer Brand would only be 8. Still not enough to kill this 16-15 minion. Purple trying to think if there's any possibility that he ever wants to use Topsy-Turvy in this spot, and I don't think so.
Yeah, you perfectly outlined that the King Crush is not enough to trade in. So there's no reason to flip it, and purple.
Oh, doesn't seem like Eddie got bailed out here. That's it.
Purple will be our player, advancing to the finals of the Americas Season 2 Grandmasters playoffs.
And what a form of irony in which purple would have gotten stopped by a lot of the secrets, but in this case, purple gets the victory 3-1. The priest able to prevail, and purple with the 3rd World Championship / Global Finals appearance within grasp will advance to the Grand Finals of Season 2, Hearthstone Americas Grandmasters.
Yeah, I really feel like purple's lineup was excellently positioned against Eddie. He brought the Zoo Warlock in his particular lineup. Eddie was very clearly targeting more late-game oriented decks. Druid specifically comes to mind when you look at the bring of the Highlander Hunter along with the Quest Shaman and the combo, excuse me, not the combo priest, but his own version of Druid with the Chef Nomi inclusion. He was hoping to face lineups that looked very differently than what purple chose to bring to this tournament, and it eventually caught up to him.
Yep. So even though Eddie's season ends here, he is a player to watch for the following year. Him and Hunter Ace have been some of the most consistent players in this entire league. And so even though Eddie is still kind of, earning his stripes, so to speak, compared to some of the other players who have multiple year-end international events under the belt, it's only a matter of time, I think, before Eddie breaks through finally and makes that global finals appearance, given that I think his tech with his deck building decisions are always on point. I love his technical play as well. And I think that one day the stars will align where Eddie can get to that global finals appearance, but today is not that day.
Yeah, he's got the talent. I think that much is clear. He's proved that over the course of 18 weeks of Hearthstone Grandmasters now against incredibly high-level competition. He took a deck-building risk with his lineup. It got him this far. It's also what's going to end up stopping him here. But I like risk-taking. It's what often finds you that edge in critical tournaments.
Right. And so the stage has been set on one side of the bracket. We are going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to have Bloody Face and Nalgadon fight for the final spot in that grand finale. Don't go anywhere. More Hearthstone Americas action right after this.